Good evening. I'm going to call the Monday, February 24th, 2025 regular meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School District Board of School Directors to order. Can I have a roll call, please? Mr. Enders.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mr. Berngard.
Here.
Calhoun. Ms. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Mrs. Peters.
Here.
Mr. Furman.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler.
Here.
8 members present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have the pledges of allegiance. Dr. Ozenbach.
I'm going to call Dr. Battaglia to the podium to introduce her students.
I'd like to introduce, Amari Brobeck and Alexa Gardner. They represent 2 of our 7th graders who qualified for states in wrestling recently.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we're going to approve the minutes. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Who wants to take that one? Okay. Any questions or concerns? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Moving on to the treasurer's report, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns?
Just want to point out to the board, we did do a $3 million investments in January. I'll be bringing more to light about that in a second. We laddered them. We did 3, 6, 9, 12 months, 750,000 apiece. So interest rates range from 4.47 down to 4.23. We are just about at a point where we have a CD maturing every month.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Enders? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Approval of the bills. May I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second.
Any questions or concerns?
Concerning the bills, they are slightly up. When you look at the details, they're not. The biggest thing that impacted the increase in our bills, as they said, we did a $3 million investment with Journey Bank. The only way we can fund the CDs with Journey Bank is we have to cut ourselves a check. So there's a $3 million check, the bill listing, so that inflated your bills by $3 million. You didn't actually spend it, you transferred the money into a CD. Other than that, there was our 3rd installment for special ed services with the IU. That's just over $137,000. Sugar Valley Rural Charter Schools tuition rate of just over 97,000 for the month of February. In regards to the scholarships, it's kind of unusual to have scholarship payments going out in January. We did the spring semester distributions in December before Christmas. Came back, found out that the one student switched schools in between semesters. So we got the original disbursement back, reissued it to the new university. And last but not least, there's a capital reserve payment on there. That is for the Avis project that has been 99% billed and paid. There's only just over $18,000 remaining on that to be paid.
Any questions to Mr. Enders? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, moving on to presentations. For communications, Dr. Ozenbach.
I have nothing under communications.
Under the President's report, we had an executive session tonight prior to the meeting to discuss personnel and safety. I also wanted to make the announcement that we are removing letter D under personnel, and personnel is letter E. So under E of personnel, under that, letter D is being removed from tonight's agenda. And before we move on to committee reports, I just wanted to recognize we have several employees who are retiring, and I just wanted to acknowledge them this evening. The athletic trainer, Jacqueline George, who has been here 39 years, is retiring. Tammy Holtenhoff, who's been here 32 years, is also retiring. There's Melissa Williamson, who has been here 26 years. Wanda Durr, who has also been here 26 years. Robert Fox has been here 32 years. And Michael Bachman has been here 34 years. And we just wanted to recognize those employees and thank them very much for all of the years and hard work that they've put into the district. So now we will move on to board committee reports. Jesse, you want to go first for the IU?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
First thing is a book donation. The IU give us a book every year to donate to our library. Can you hear me now? I must have been talking in my pen. Hold on. Is that better? Is that better? I'll hold it. So, this is a book that that is being donated to our elementary from the IU. Every year they give us a book to donate. This is the Alphabet War. It is a book about dyslexia and how when you have dyslexia and you see things differently, which when you do become older, it becomes your superpower. It doesn't say that in this, but it has very good references and a great little fun story. So that's for the library. And then also I'd like to add this pamphlet to the transition folder that we have, that we hand out. It has the barcode on the back that's easy for parents to use as a reference. And it has the schedules and the application and the information of all of the two schools that the IU has this wonderful bridge program for your older students, and they can participate in a college atmosphere in the SARE and Lycoming College. And they really do enjoy it, and they become part of the campus, and they feel a little bit more special because the college students take them on as kind of like one of their own, and it's ages 17 to 21, or we now have the age 20, the year until your 22nd birthday. So I'd like to also add that. So I'll just pass that down. And that is all I have at this time.
Yes,
Pass it down.
last Wednesday, February 19th, at 4 PM, the Building and Grounds Committee met. We had a very informational meeting presented by Site Logic and Mr. Wayne Brocart. They more or less gave us some direction and some timelines that we want to look at. So at this time, people should have it at your seat. It's on the board up on top there in the back, I guess. So, Mr. Brocart, if you want to maybe go through that and explain to the board members and the public here what we're looking at.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, just give me a second. Listen to my phone. It's a little small. Hang on.
Oh, here it is. It's getting bigger.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Brungard. We are
Goes to Michelle.
right now going to talk about 2 phases of a middle school project, as well as an Avis Elementary project, and we have differentiated them at the middle school as Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 would also include the Avis Elementary project, and that is entirely a classroom unit ventilator project. Middle school will be 70 of them, and then Avis, I believe, and will have to refer at times to Carla. I believe Carla's on, or Mark. Is it 13, Mark? At Avis, that's what I thought, okay. And those we would like to present to you for approval on March 10th. Phase 2, we're still in the estimate phase in terms of a cost. That would be coming to you on the 24th. Phase 2 would include, and it would be done in 2025. Phase 1 would be done in 2024. It would include chilled water pumps, domestic hot water storage tank, domestic hot water heater, hot water pumps, and I believe LED lighting is part of that as well. If you could you scroll down? Look at this. We have LED lighting, cafeteria, and library HVAC. Thank you. There it is. Okay, I see it coming down now. That would be in 2025. We've made the decision to defer the gym floor to 2026 in the summer. The gym floor is actually 69 years old. This is at the middle school. It is original to the building, but we do believe you'll be able to work through one more year with that, and then we'll address that in terms of a design for the 2026 summer project season. Once we get to Phase 3, we would be looking at some more aesthetic type upgrades, and once again, we're looking primarily at the middle school. This is all going to be dependent on the level of borrowing that you're moving forward with, or the decision you make tonight. I believe you're having a presentation on that as well. We'll follow up on that with you to see what level you'd like to go to with the Phase 3. Down at the bottom, you have your action items. You have February 24th as your finance resolution, which you have PFM here tonight. March 10th, as I had said, that would be Phase 1 coming to you, the financial parameters resolution. Our amendments, it would be amendment number 3, Avis Elementary, unit events, as I said, that's a Phase 1. Amendment number 4, middle school Phase 1, also unit events, and then Phase 2 would be the final amendment, and that would be the ones that are listed next to 2025 on Phase 2. Any questions or anything I moved through? I went through that very quickly. Any questions? Anything you'd like clarified?
I have a couple, maybe,
Okay.
clarify here, but the Phase 1 and Phase 2, money-wise together, they're approximate 7.5 or under? Or
Yes.
do you don't have numbers on that yet?
Phase 1 was a precise number. We do have that
Phase
number.
1 was like 3.2 million,
About
somewhere around
3.2
that.
million, and that is an all-in number. That includes contingencies, soft costs, there are no change orders. Remember, we're doing this as a GISA, so there's no change order. We incur any additional costs. The only thing that can change that is if you come back to a scheduled meeting and vote in the affirmative, you want to change the scope of the project. Anything other than that, it's an all-in figure. There are no change orders in a GISA.
And in Phase 2, there's no amount?
We'll have that
deficit?
soon. Yeah, we'll have that soon. But we've made a commitment that it will not go beyond that 7.5 figure total at the middle school.
Okay, I guess my other concern is I would hope we would stay under that quite a bit, because I would really like to see something done with that gym. I know we're gonna refurbish the ceilings and stuff, take out the 2 drop ceilings, and paint the other ones and do some different lighting in there and, the catwalk and stuff like that and
Yeah,
and probably new bleachers maybe and
we understand
finish
that
the floor
that's,
if we have, that's gonna be an expensive item, but that's already in phase 2, part of that.
yeah, and that's totally at the end of its life cycle. There's no question about that. We know that in the initial assessment that we did, that we had said 20 years, which is typical for a gym floor. It's very typical, again, for districts to go long beyond 20 years. But 69 years is an outlier. It definitely needs to be addressed. It's something, not this summer, but next summer, you're really going to have to take a look at.
Right, and then, again, I just point out that none of this has been definitely decided upon. I don't think that has to go to the board, I guess, for final approval, so. I mean, there's some things under phase 2 that, you know, I might want to save a little bit so to make sure that we have enough money to do the gym floor and whatever's necessary there in the gym and the locker room and stuff like that, but I guess we're gonna have to decide that once we get to the actual dollar amount
Yeah,
that comes in for the first phase 1 and 2.
yeah. With this not being an approval meeting tonight, Mr. Arnold is committed to another district in western Pennsylvania. I know he feels confident that we'll be able to come in under the number. I think he's reported that before to you. We're very confident that we'll come in well under the 7.5, so you should have the capacity to do the things that we've listed in phase 2.
Any
But
questions?
again, I
on-
believe we also did decide to push the gym floor back to 2026.
Right.
Okay.
And is
We have
that
3
considered
years.
phase 3? The
I
gym,
believe we still have it under phase 2. We're calling it phase 2.
because you said something about phase 3, but it's not on
Yeah,
here.
phase 3, we really haven't defined on yet, and I think that's dependent on the level of borrowing, and we still have to have some meetings with your committee, Mr. Wall, and your entire board about phase 3.
Okay,
Phase 1 and 2 are supposed to be, hopefully, be done this summer. And then
Yes,
on out, maybe another year or 2, phase 3, I guess is what you want to call it, it's not labeled that, will be
yeah, and
completed, because we
we'll
have 3
spill a little
years.
bit into the fall, more than likely, but the bulk of this should be finished in the summer. And we're irrespective of heating season, we understand that we need to move on this, and we're comfortable bringing you this in the time frame that we can get the items to us. Already contracted, or gotten through to our subcontractors, they're holding pricing, and you know, as Mr. Arnold said a few times, we're confident we can move this. I'm going to reach back here, let me grab some.
Any other questions from the board members here? You're spending probably $7 to $10 million, so any questions on it?
And I just wanted to remind everyone of this. Once you get into phase 3, we would continue to use this as a guide. We'll update everything in it. This is what we had gone through with our asset condition assessment. Everything that you've done and discussed is based off of this
Right.
summary, which determines the age, condition, and expectancy of everything in primarily in the middle school.
Correct.
I don't have any questions per se, but I did have a request. When it comes to doing, I realize for phase 1 on letter A, the ventilators, I realize it's just ventilators.
Sure.
However, as we get into phase 2, B through L,
Yes,
I would request, if possible, to have an itemized
yes,
bill with all things listed,
yeah.
fees, your fee, yes.
I talked to Mr. Arnold about that today. We'll make sure
Okay.
you have that in your hands.
That would be wonderful. I'd also would like the board to have a time frame of start to finish
Yeah,
on each phase, approximate. I realize not everything goes according to plan,
right.
but an approximate on start to finish dates.
Yeah, there'll be a schedule.
Wonderful.
We'll definitely have that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I have another question, the lighting.
Sure.
Obviously, it says LED, I understand what that, but where are you talking about? The whole inside of the building, or are you talking about inside and out?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Mark on that one. Mark, is that the entire building? I thought so.
Like the classrooms, the hallway, okay, okay.
You're talking about replacing the corridors, the ceiling, drop ceiling in those corridors and stuff, and then put in LED lighting? Okay.
That's going to improve your aesthetic appeal greatly, and as well as energy efficiency. That's the biggest bang for your buck, lighting. Other questions? I know I speak pretty quickly, and I'm not an engineer. I told you a few days ago, you're not going to get the technical answers you'll get from Mike and Carla. But if there's anything I can help you with, or anything I can go get an answer and bring it back, please let me know.
Just a quickie here, the hot water heaters, circulating pumps, there's probably not a short demand for them. I guess they'd be probably pretty available.
Probably more available than some of the things we look at, yes.
Okay, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions? Yeah. Mhm.
Let me say that again.
There you go.
So I just asked Mr. Wall about the gym equipment, the curtains and the padding. Is that removal or replace?
The curtain would be replacing the big center divider. It's in the
Yep.
middle school gym now. That would be more of a curtain, not a hard wall.
Okay,
And then padding would be adding more padding to the doors, the doorways on the other side of the basketball hoops. There's essentially no padding there right now.
okay.
There is directly behind the basketball hoops, but nothing else.
Right. Is
Like
that
all
the,
the door hardware should be protected.
right? Is that like the same padding that was there when I went to school?
There's the
Like,
only
is it the
padding-
same kind?
Yeah. The only
Okay.
padding that's existing, like I said, is behind the basketball hoops. Typically, you would see anything on that wall that's protruding out would have padding around it.
Okay. And with the lighting, so that would be everything included for the lighting, replace the whole lights and everything,
In the gym?
the recessing of it, yeah.
Yeah, what we're looking at to do in the gym has a drop ceiling in it right now.
Right,
That drop ceiling would be essentially torn out.
right.
And everything will go to the bottom side of the roof. And the ceiling would all be painted. And then just lights coming down from and then there's obviously two makeup air units that are in the gym too. Those will stay in place, all the ductwork will stay in place, but the ceiling that's around it, it's not real conducive for in a gym.
Okay,
It gets, the tiles get bumped out and problematic.
right. I think I can envision that.
I have a question, Mark. I'm sorry, were you done?
I'm done.
Okay. When we remove the 2 layers of ceiling in the gym, what's that going to do to the heat loss? We
Well, the
know?
bottom side of the roof has insulation on it, so I'm gonna work with Site Logic on, we're probably gonna put fans up there to push hot air down like we do at the high school. It would be directional fans. In the summertime, they'd pull the heat up, and then in the wintertime, they'd push the heat down.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brookhart, for coming this evening. Anything else under your report, Mr. Brungard?
No, I think that's it. The only, we'll have to talk about direction going forward, I guess. Putting it on the agenda and things like that, and where we're gonna go with some of these in phase 2, maybe. Whether we wanna have a meeting to discuss that, a special meeting, whatever. We'll see.
Okay. Okay. Moving on to the student representative report.
I would like to go over some of the student body achievements over the past few months. In athletics, the boys and girls basketball team both qualified for districts. The girls basketball team were the Division I basketball champs for the PEAJC. Many swimmers made districts. The districts event for swimming is not until later this week. For girls wrestling in districts, Olivia Spots took 4th place, Isabella Gottschall took 2nd place, and Addison Dangle won the district championship. For boys wrestling, Zeke Seacrest, Jonathan Dincher, and Madsen Lepton all got 3rd place in their weight classes. Slade Seacrest got 2nd place in his weight class. Tobias Morgret and Loudon Spots are both district champions In their weight classes, the bocce team made the second straight Western Division Championship, which Jersey Shore gets to host at the high school on Thursday, February 27th. From clubs and extracurricular activities, and from the music department, Joey Isley, Ali Drahim, and Briar Kowick participated in the Pima District 8 Band Festival at Berwick High School. Cash Griswold and Mason Lucas participated in the Pima District 8 Modern Band Festival at Loyalsock High School. Sarah Andrus participated in the Pima District 8 Choir Festival at Bloomsburg University. Joey Isley, Ali Drahim, Briar Kowick, and Emily Eisner participated in the Susquehanna University Honors Band Festival. Briar Kowick is set to participate in the Pima Region 4 Band Festival at Williamsport. The high school is performing Mary Poppins the Musical on March 14th, 15th, and 16th. The Indoor Color Guard earned first place at their first competition in Bellefonte and are currently third out of 23 groups. The jazz band will be participating in the Williamsport City Jazz Orchestra at Jazz Festival at the Lycoming College in March. Concert band is preparing to celebrate their 100th anniversary with an alumni concert this spring on May 17th. For FBLA, members are currently practicing for state competition in April. They just wrapped up a chocolate-covered pretzel fundraiser. A few members assisted at a food bank, and as a few members helped the concession stand at a middle school basketball tournament, as well as a high school concession stand. And they are currently working on the chapter champion requirements, which is the national recognition of local and state chapters. That is all I have. Is there any questions?
Okay, thank you, young man. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Ozenbach.
I'm going to start by calling the representative up to the podium from PFM for a financial update.
It's great to be here tonight. My name is Melissa Hughes, and I'm here from PFM Financial Advisors. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, she doesn't look anything like Jamie Doyle. I know. I'm impersonating her. So I'm going to speak from this handout that I think some of you have in front of you. It's much easier to look at if you have a physical copy, but for those in the audience, we have it on the screen as well. We're going to start by talking about the interest rate environment. So the top graph is a graph of what interest rates have looked like over the last 30 years for tax-exempt borrowers. You or I, right now, could go get a home mortgage at rates from 6 to 7%, depending on how good our credit is. But that's really different than the rate that the school district can borrow at. Because the IRS lets school districts and counties and all sorts of other kinds of local governments borrow on a tax-exempt basis, you can get lower interest rates. So in the low 4% range right now. So significantly better than what you or I can get. And that's what this is an illustration of. The red line is the 30-year historic average. And you can see that looks like a check mark. It's curved. Interest rates in a normal environment are curved. The blue line is what rates look like today. More of a flat line, meaning that short-term interest rates are above historic averages. Those are the ones you invest at. So when Ben was talking earlier about, his CD ladder, those are the rates you can get there. And then long-term rates that you borrow at are very similar. So that's just kind of the most important concept. The middle graph gives you a sense of how the day-to-day rates have moved over the last 30 years for a 10-year bond if you had a perfect credit rating. The school district has a very good credit rating, but not a perfect credit rating, just like you or I probably don't have a perfect credit score. So the way it works is there's the perfect rating, and then you price bonds with a spread to that index. And so we care about the general direction. The bottom graph shows you how rates have trended over the last year and a half or so. You can see they've come up and then they continue to be what we call range bound. So they stay kind of in the same range. They go up and down a little bit, bouncing around near 4% for long-term borrowings. These words are so small. So what we're going to look at tonight is two different scenarios. The first scenario looks at if the school district borrowed $7.5 million and paid it off over a 15-year term. The second scenario looks at if the school district borrowed $10 million and paid it off over the same 15-year term. Anytime we're thinking about what the term of a borrowing should be, we consider what the useful life of the project is and what the method of procurement is. So this is an ESCO project, which is term limited to 20 years or less. And so that helps us figure out how long borrowings can be. The next point that I really want to focus in on is the section called Federal Tax Laws Recap. So just because interest rates are pretty darn good doesn't mean that we can just go borrow money. Because the IRS allows you the ability to borrow money on a tax-exempt basis, they ask you to meet some basic tests before you go to market. The first test is that you can reasonably expect to spend 85% of the money that you borrow within 3 years of settlement. So settlement's the day that the money shows up in your account. The second test is that within 6 months of settlement, you reasonably expect to enter into a substantial binding obligation to spend 5% of the proceeds. You don't have to expend 5%, you have to have a contract. So in this case, it would be a GISA amendment with site logic. And finally, you have to proceed with due diligence to do the project. Doesn't mean that things can't get delayed, but it means you need to continue the decision-making process. I always tell the story, I have a client that fully intended to build a new public works building. They got really far down the process and ran into a major problem with their site. And they had to totally go back to the drawing board, and it put them 18 months behind. But they continued to move the project forward and proceeded with due diligence. So they meet that IRS test because they continued to do things, even though they had a huge setback. So those are important tests that we keep in mind when considering going for a borrowing. I'm not going to spend too much time on the next couple sections. Just a reminder that any of these scenarios, so the reason we're talking about $7.5 or $10 million is because both of them are bank qualified bonds. That's not the same as a bank loan. They're both kinds of bond issues. And because the IRS wants to incentivize investors to offer money not just to the big boys like New York City or School District of Philadelphia, they offer a little bit of extra incentive in terms of tax deduction for banks that lend to small issuers, which they define as issuers who borrow $10 million or less per calendar year. And so sometimes, most often, if you can issue on a bank qualified basis, there's a benefit to interest rate and a call feature. So a call feature is the first time when you, as a school district, can refinance the debt to save money. And so with bank qualified bonds, you can do that after 5 years, whereas with non-bank qualified bonds, the standard is between 7 and 10 years. So it's more flexible. I'm going to talk about parameters resolution at the end of the presentation. Let's review the district's existing debt. You have a wonderfully concise debt portfolio right now. This top half of the page is the gross debt service. That is the principal and interest that you have promised investors that you will pay. And you can see that you have one bond issue and then 2 bank loans. So we look at all the options when we're financing things. The bottom half of the page is the one we really care about. This is the school district's local effort. That is the debt service after you take into account the state reimbursement on your old bond issues, because all of your existing debt is reimbursable. So column 10 is the one we're going to focus on. So you have a net effort in your budget of approximately $2.5 million through and including 2029. Then your debt service drops down in 2030 to about $900,000, and then is paid off in 2031 as it stands right now. At the bottom of the page, you can see the line labeled call date. So you can see that those 2019 bonds, they are callable next week, meaning that if it made economic sense to refinance them, we could do that. It doesn't make sense to do that right now, so we're not going to do anything with them. We're going to advise you to keep them the way they are. And your 2 bank loans from 2020 and 2021 are prepayable anytime without penalty. Also, incredibly low rates. The right answer is do nothing. There we go. Sorry, I'm learning a new technology as I'm presenting, so we're figuring it out together. So let's talk about what these borrowings could mean in terms of total debt service. Column 4 is bringing that column 10 from the prior page forward. So you can see column 4 is your existing local effort. That's what your local effort would look like if you did nothing. The brown scenario, scenario 1, assumes that the district borrows $7.5 million, gets the money in their construction fund in April of 2025 with a term of 15 years. We're using the wraparound structure where the principal largely starts to fill in as your old debt service drops off. So you can see in this scenario, in 2026, the school district would need an incremental $275,000 to go towards debt service, and then roughly another $50,000 in the 2027 budget year. And so that's the difference between the $275,000 payment you see in 2026 and the $328,000 payment you see in 2027. You have the local effort after you're done in column 6. So column 6 is what your new total local effort would look like. You could see would maintain a debt drop-off in 2030 and 2031. It wouldn't go to 0 anymore, but you'd still have a lot of additional capacity, and you'd be debt-free in 2040 in this scenario. The blue option, scenario 2, looks at if the school district borrowed $10 million. All the other kind of parameters are the same, so the same timing, the same term, and the same structure. And you can see here, as we're looking down column 7, the school district would need an incremental $365,000 in 2026. And then, you go from $365,000 to $435,000 in 2027. Okay. Again, similarly, you'd have debt drop-offs in the same timing that you would in scenario 1. It wouldn't drop quite as low because this is a larger borrowing, but you would, again, be paid off by 2040. These numbers are a little bit conservative, but not crazy conservative. If you were doing this today, you'd do a little bit better than this. But we have interest rate risk before the district could lock anything in. So let's talk about timing. Tonight, you're having an update to the board, and you could consider authorizing the financing team to proceed. The sample motion, which you see above, I believe is on your board agenda tonight. If the board authorized the financing team to proceed with one of the options, we would come back at the March the 10th meeting with the parameters resolution. That's the legal debt incurring resolution that allows us to then go sell bonds the next day. Some key things about the parameters resolution. Why do we do it? Because it makes sure that we can sell bonds on the right day instead of a day aligned with the school board meeting date. You know, you meet once or maybe twice a month. That's pretty inflexible when it comes to the volatility in the bond market. So that's the why to the tool. Couple of important things to know about the parameters resolution, and you've done this in the past. So if you say, yes, please proceed with a $10 million borrowing, we're going to use this as an example because the math is really easy. The parameters amount that will be at the top of your borrowing resolution will be for 20% more than you intend to borrow. And that's because under state law, the state requires we set out the maximum principal amount in each year. And so in order to get level debt service at the end of the day, because we don't know what the coupons and the interest rates the banks will offer us via the competitive internet process are, we need just a little bit of extra principal in each maturity in order to get that overall level debt service. So this is something we try to be proactive to talking to boards about so that you don't call us up the day before and you're like, my parameters resolution is for 12 million. I only want to borrow 10. Yes, this is the way it works. Bond counsel, so that's Jens Dongard, will file what's called a certificate of non-completion after the sale that takes that extra principal away and says, take it off the district's books, we don't authorize it anymore. Okay? I want to make sure you're familiar with that procedure. So if the district moved on this timeline, you could have money in your account to begin spending on projects as soon as April the 30th. We'll move at the speed that you're comfortable with, but this gives you a sense of how long it takes from the day you say go till when we get to the final money in your account. All right, happy to answer any questions folks might have.
Excuse me, I have a couple.
Yep.
The interest rate you're basing this on is, do you know,
Yeah, it's about a 435.
4.35? Expected to come in lower than that?
Yeah, based on rates today,
Under 4?
probably close to 4.
And then say, go to the 10 million, doesn't matter whether it's column 5 or column 7, but the first 5 years is strictly interest that we're paying on that money, there's no principal involved?
There's very small principal payments.
The rest of it down there is interest and principal on the payment.
Yeah.
Okay, and then column 8, last one.
Yep.
And again, I'm going to refer to Ms. Standers on this, but I assume that when you do your budget every year, one of the first things you got to do is put that debt service in there of 2.5, 2.6, whatever it is. That's one of your first things you got to put into the budget. And then as you look down through there, it looks like that debt service, instead of being 2.5, it's almost going to be decreased by half, 50% as we go down there, even though we're borrowing $10 million. So I would expect.
Talking about in 2030, Mr. Grimberg? Are we referencing where it goes in half?
Yeah, from like
He's a number at line 8.
630, 630, 20, yeah.
Yeah, that's the debt coming off the books. That's when the existing debt
Right.
pays off is in 2030. So that's why your debt payment will go from this illustration, 10 million, 0.9 down to 1.3.
Yep.
Right, so it's 50% of what we've been paying over the previous X years. Okay.
So one thing, if I can add some additional narrative. So I know you're kind of considering what the right amount to borrow is and what the right amount of project to do is. In general, you want the project to drive the financing, not the other way around. But if you think in the 3 years of reasonable expectations that you have $10 million of projects that you can spend out, there are some economies of scale to doing one slightly larger borrowing rather than paying the costs of the transaction 2 times for like one slightly larger amount and then a second fairly small amount. So I just offer that for consideration. We'll do as many borrowings as you want to do, but
Okay, then just one thing for the board here. I know we really don't know what the costs are of phase 2 yet, but there are other things that the committee has discussed upon, like fixing up, repairing, like the gym, the locker rooms and stuff like that, painting the floor, ceilings and stuff like that. There's no way that we would not be able to spend $10 million if we come up short somehow and we didn't need it. So there's always other areas that we could spend that money or use it for, repairs of that middle school.
Melissa, can you provide the board a rough number of what additional cost of 10 million borrowing, $7.5 million borrowing?
yeah, just a second. Let me refer to my page here. So in rough numbers, if you said to us, hey, PFM, please go borrow us $7.5 million. And then you came back in April of 2028. And I am emphasizing this timing for a reason, because the timing is really a driver here, okay? So that's essentially outside of the 3-year window. You know, we're in 2028. You came back and said, hey, come back and borrow the difference for us between 7.5 and 10. So in terms of upfront costs, we would estimate that it would be just a little bit more than $100,000 of kind of duplicate costs, because you're doing the transaction twice. And net at the end of the day, all else being equal, assuming interest rates were the same, you know, we don't know what interest rates would be at that time, but the net difference is about $140,000-ish. You know, to the good if you waited till 2028. If you think that you need $2.5 million more at all sooner than that, so if you borrowed in 2027, all of that benefit is eaten up by just paying the duplicate costs and having the smaller borrowing outstanding for a longer period of time. Okay, so it's really a timing question.
So I asked her to present that information because I also did some calculations on my side. So if you did the 10 million today, and we put 2.5 million of that into a CD, in 1 year at 4%, we make $100,000. In 2 years, we make $204,000. So we know today that the $2.5 million we don't need this summer. We don't need it probably next summer. So we will be able to invest that in a long-term investment.
It's a very fine balancing act. You want to spend it though at the end of the 3rd year.
Yes.
Right? It's like, all right, we don't need it today. We don't maybe need it 2 days from now, but we need to make sure we need it by the 3rd day, so that we're meeting that first reasonable expectation test that the IRS sets out. So, you know, borrowing the higher amount would mean everybody looks around and says, yep, we got $10 million of projects to do, and we'll take the actions needed to advance projects worth $10 million, so we can spend that within 3 years of settlement.
Ben, I hate to do this to you, but can you repeat that?
1 year is 100,000. 2 years is 204,000. And I'm
Thanks.
going to be honest with you. We just got rates. I'm getting 4.4% on a 1 year CD. Just got quotes this week. Starting. The key point, what Melissa's telling you, is you have to be basically committed to doing $10 million of projects in 3 years.
If you don't, it's not that the world explodes. It's that the IRS makes you do something called rebate your excess interest earnings to them. Really fancy words for saying, there's the bond rate. Let's pretend that it's 4%. After the first 3 years, if you earn more than 4%, say you earn 4.5% in year 4, that 0.5% between your bond rate and your borrowing rate has to go to the IRS. You get to keep the first 4%, but not the extra 0.5%.
Does the board have any other questions for Mr. Enders or for Melissa? We will need to discuss before we move on what number we would like to put in.
Can I ask Ben,
Absolutely.
where are we getting the extra money for the debt payments? We haven't been given that information at this point, unless I missed it, one of the two.
So I think a part of the plan always with the closure was to use the savings in order to help finance some of these projects. So the savings from the closure will help finance.
But we don't know what that is yet at this point, or we do?
Well, I believe when you was presented, Dr. Ulmer presented an $800,000 savings.
Well, but we don't know whether we have losing that many teachers yet. We will soon, but we don't know it yet. None of the ones on tonight are elementary teachers. Just asking a question. This is what you're increasing your debt services over those first 5 years.
Any other questions? Okay, well, yes, Jesse.
Ben, how does this look, how does this affect, or I don't know how I want to ask, what are you thinking of tax-wise?
This?
Yes.
I don't see this having an impact on your taxes at all.
I like that. Thank you.
Should really alleviate them as years go on, right? Taking the debt service from 2.56 down to 1.23.
Come on, Harry, you know you're going to borrow more money in between there or at the third year. You have many millions of dollars that you want to do. So you're telling me that what we have on this paper is it? That when we're done,
Oh,
that
you're always going to be in debt, probably, all schools.
No, not in debt. That, you know, we were looking at things at one time we were borrowing 10 million and then 16 million here and then another 16 million. We're not going to do that other 32 million anywhere?
Don't know.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
I see this as an investment to all the students because it's the middle school and they'll all utilize it.
Well, I think the question that needs to be asked is the things that are on Site Logic's, presentation, the things that need to be fixed. If we don't continue to move forward in the next phases or beyond that, what is, if we're going to say, what is the plan then to continue on fixing the things that need to be fixed if we're not looking out in the future to do them? That's the question that needs to be asked, in my opinion, rather than just kind of let things go and run into the ground. That's my common sense approach.
I just want to give you a purely financial perspective of this. Melissa, if I'm off base, let me know.
Yep.
I mean, historic lows that we saw 3-4 years ago, never say never, but they're not the norms. We're probably right now at 4% at low, average.
Yep.
So the good news is you're still borrowing at a good time, getting good rates. And you're also hedged from the upside, because in 5 years, if those historic lows come back, we will have the opportunity to refinance this debt. I mean, all the debt she showed you on your list
Was
at the
refinanced more than
beginning
once.
has been refinanced multiple times. I think in my first 4 or 5 years, we refinanced 3 or 4 times. We were refinancing at least once a year.
Yep.
A couple times, I think we did it once every 6 months. I mean, it was a common phone call to Jamie Doyle going, can we refinance today? Yep, we're moving. So you're at a good rate, and in 5 years, you'll be hedged from an uptick in rates, and you'll be protected from a decrease in rates. So, and what I see is the better side that's not usual is our short-term investment rates are at a point where we're going to earn more than we're paying on the borrowing.
I wanted to say, in regard to the positions that you were speaking of, we do have 3 elementary positions currently that will be not filled. We had 1 kindergarten position that wasn't filled this year. We had a resignation already of a 2nd grade teacher, and we did have a Dr. Almer received a retirement letter since this agenda has been published, so it's not on here.
And you'll know that much more after the end of this, you'll know that after the end of this week. It can go into the updates, or even before the next board meeting. But those are critical on having that savings. And, you know, because there's a big difference between that you have to come up with 325,000, I'm just rounding, to 435,000, and the difference between the 7 houses. So that's a big difference. So depending on what we get, whether that exists or not, that's just my comment on the thing. And if we get that savings, I agree with you, Ben, there would be no difference on their tax rates. Well, because of this. I won't say there'd be no, you have to be careful what I say there. There would be no different because of this.
Anybody else? Any questions, any comments?
I have a comment, I have a question. So Ben, so so I can ask your recommendation on what we can afford, and I would just leave it at that. And that's my,
Yeah, I would recommend you go with the $10 million. On Tuesday night, Dr. Ulmer and I were both on the phone call, and we both concurred with that. I think he's on tonight.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn and speaking for him, and he concurs with that.
I just wanted to be clear.
Yes, I believe the district has $10 million of projects that need done
I agree.
in classrooms. We haven't even talked about high school science classrooms.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Don't think that it's coming down to that, because you're,
That's your 10 way
Right,
up.
Dr. Omer said something.
but will 10 million be enough? That becomes a question. 10 million beyond that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Well, based upon Mr. Ender's recommendation of the 10 million, and I know Dr. Almer obviously agrees with that, I'm looking for a motion to amend, for the amendment for letter E under finance on what number to put under there. So would somebody like to make a motion for the $10 million to be placed as the number under letter E?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second
Jesse?
it.
Seconded. Any questions or discussion or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much, Melissa, for coming, and I thought you did a wonderful job explaining things, so thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so next I will call up three administrators that we have here today, Ms. Johnston, Dr. Battaglia, and Mr. Crape, in order to answer any questions that you as a board may have about their budget presentations that you were given previously. And also, if you have any questions for Mr. Jean, I will write your questions down. He is unable to be with us tonight.
So I kn- Thank you for coming here this evening. Board members, I know that you were given the budget binders and had several weeks to look them over, so I sent out a reminder to you Thursday, with any questions as you went over that. So does anybody here have any questions specifically for Mr. Crape? We'll start there, if that's okay with you. Go from left to right as I read. Okay. Any board members have any questions for Mr. Crape?
Okay, a couple I have. And I'm going to say the budgets all look pretty nicely, and I think you spent time and did well with them, but some of my questions are clarifications.
Okay.
And some of them are just because I just don't understand. Give me the rundown on what's happening with the Scantron.
So essentially, we're making a push for digitized testing. I want to say, and obviously this is a rough number, I'm going to say 90% of our teachers have already moved to either doing automatic tests in Schoology, which is our LMS, our learning management system, or they've found another avenue to do it. So there's only one or two teachers that are still utilizing the Scantrons. Now, the Scantron machines do not go away. This is just a maintenance agreement that if something were to happen to them, that they would be covered under an agreement. I can't, in my tenure here, remember ever having them fixed. So the maintenance agreement, to me, does not seem to be
We used to send them away every year, but that's okay. That's a difference.
Well, and as they moved away from using the Scantron.
But that's not why and the reason I'm asking, because I got the impression that that's what was happening, you were moving away from them.
Sure.
And I see that in your budget, under the middle school, you totally took it out, but under the high school, it's still there. So it's still needed at the high school, or?
So we still have one or two teachers, and I will name no names, that are being resistant.
And I'm okay with that.
And we will get
I
them
wouldn't
to
think you would
move.
need the amount of money you put in there for forms if you're only looking at one or two teachers.
Yeah.
Okay, that was, because it's just like one place that was gone and the other place that was there.
The middle school, Dr. Tagley, correct me if I'm wrong, are not using them at all.
I
Like,
didn't
they're
even realize they had one at the middle school. I knew they had two at the high school. And you have this under basically all of them, 2380 348, it's comply. I just don't know what it is. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there, I just don't know what it is. What, can you tell me what it is?
So Comply is the administrative software that they're using to track clearances. We're utilizing it for our print request system. We do our state-required trainings. So essentially, it's a system to maintain dates and make sure that nobody lapses in their required trainings or their.
So then you split it across the district, is that what's
Yeah,
happening?
yeah.
Okay. And then, under your district-wide, the 1,100, I couldn't tell because of the way the hole punches were, whether it's 1,100 or 1,110, 348. Why the not drastic difference, but a decent amount of difference in their phone system?
In the phone system.
It dropped like $6,500 for next year. Is that because we're not putting them in, or?
So after we did the district-wide phone system replacement, we're not foreseeing that we're going to need that much. So we took that money out of there as a money saving. We just don't feel like we needed that money attributed to that account.
All right, the next one is the bus boss.
Mhm.
And I know we use it for what we use it for. Is it a rolling charge or what? Because I see you didn't have anything in last year, but you have something in, you have 4,600 in for next year.
Yes, so that's a sync that we set up between our student information system and with BusBoss, so that the information from our SIS will actually transition directly into BusBoss, and BusBoss back into our SIS to maintain a better record of where our kids are. And it'll actually allow us to use our SIS to send out pinpointed alerts should there be one bus that's late.
So is this an update or just a renewing subscription?
It'll be a yearly subscription, but it was just put in this
okay.
year. Like we voted to go with it to make sure that we could get that data link configured, and then we put it in the budget for this year.
All right, and the iReady, which is the same as it was last year at $80,000. What does that cover with iReady? I mean, what subject areas is it for? Is it for more than one? Is it for only one? And I also heard that the iReady that we're using, which I'm not sure that you can answer the question, I think the other ones have to answer it, is that it is for supplemental work. And so what's our core? What's our core? Because I can't imagine a supplemental is 80,000, the core is 80,000.
I was gonna say if you wanna.
Which I said, the other ones have to answer. I just know it's in your budget.
Yeah, so that budget covers all students in grades kindergarten through 8th grade, and they have services on iReady that addresses math and reading. So what essentially we've been using, the primary use of iReady has been that all the students in K through 8 take a diagnostic test at the beginning, middle, and end of the year on iReady. It places them at their individual level, and then iReady creates an individualized pathway of lessons to address the student's instructional needs at their level. So each student in a classroom is working on an individual path. If I have a student that's like a year behind grade level, below grade level, they'll be working on a pathway of lessons to address those needs. If I have a student who's 2 years ahead of grade level, it gives them a personalized path to meet their needs as well. So that's the primary, purpose that we've been using iReady for. It also has something called Teacher Toolbox, which is individualized lessons that teachers can assign to students. So say it's not going to maybe come up in my personalized pathway that iReady created for me, but the teacher is teaching a lesson on fractions or common denominators that day, they can pull out a lesson specifically on that topic or standard out of the teacher toolbox and assign it to their class as like a practice activity or a classwork activity. So all of those things are available in the teacher toolbox. What came up at our last in-service on the 17th, we had an iReady representative, as you know, we have a number of elementary teachers who are piloting iReady Math as their math core curriculum this year. Some of them are still using Everyday Math, which was our previous program. Some have chosen to pilot iReady Math. What they're using for that pilot is the lessons that come right out of that teacher toolbox. So you can use Teacher Toolbox as a supplement, like I just explained. Like if you're teaching a lesson on fractions, pull out one activity or lesson on fractions and assign it to your kids. Or you can go through the whole thing like a scope and sequence and teach it like your core math program, which is what the pilot teachers are doing. What some of our teachers noticed was that teachers who use iReady in other districts had some slightly different math activities and resources than what we did, and they had a copyright of 2024 on them. Our lessons said 2018. That brought up a question for our teachers. They questioned the sales rep who was there or he wasn't a sales rep, he was a content rep, thank you. He wasn't there as a sales rep, but he did answer their questions, and that is the 2018 program was initially their core program that they sold in 2018 as their core math program. Since then, they've come out with updates, and now they are charging more money for a 2024 version of a core curriculum. They're marketing the 2018 as a supplemental program, which is the question that you got from a teacher. So it's basically a 2018 core program versus an updated 2024 one.
So if we're going to use it as a core, are we moving to what their core material? I mean, and I don't have a problem with it philosophically or anything like that. And as far as the math goes, the math program that you have right now, I'm the one that instituted that when I was department head 20 plus years ago. So I mean, there's no shame in looking at something different and doing something different. My question is, are we giving the teachers all the tools that they need? If that's supplemental, what's missing in the supplemental that they still need? And I also saw in your budget, you're eliminating some of the reusable material, which I'm fine. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just not trying to understand that our teachers have access. What I think is bad is that you have reading and math in the same year, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So my question is, are we going to be giving our teachers that core if that's what your preschool or K to 3 or K to 5 is using? Are we giving them that whole package, or are they still dealing with the supplemental?
So the reason we're piloting right now is because we're kind of in a decision or, finding out process. We're exploring all those resources. They're using that 2018 program, and I honestly think that the company is calling it supplemental now because they can sell a new program and make more money. I'm sure that they've made improvements to it. I'm sure there are things in the 2024 that 2018 didn't have. I don't think that means that the 2018, which was their core, is bad. And he even told us that. He said, I don't want you guys to go away thinking that you're not providing everything for your students that you could be. There's always more that we can
So there
add.
has been a correlation with the PSSAs, that it's all covered?
That's one of the things they improved in the 2024 is they aligned it more closely with the PA core standards.
So you don't know that in the 2018, okay.
Right, so we're working,
I just think we need to be careful and make sure we're giving our teachers all the tools that they need. That's where I'm coming from.
yeah, Chad and I are just in communication with the iReady rep to find out some more information, like what would be the cost to add anything, what else can they offer. So right now, we don't want to do a new reading and a new math program in the same year, so we're not going to make a final decision on math until 26, 27, because next year will be our new reading implementation. We'll give teachers another opportunity to pilot if they want to try iReady Math, and then we'll make a final decision after that.
So you'll have enough material of the reusable for the everyday math if they need it Because you
Yes.
dropped it quite a bit.
Yeah, and some of that was because even the teachers who are still using everyday math, they've gone to using the digital content and printing what they need
Okay.
instead of purchasing the books, which was the expensive part of the program.
Thank you.
That's all I have with technology.
Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate that. Do you have anything else, Mrs. Thomas, or those were all your questions?
On technology,
On
that's all you
technology,
asked for.
correct. Anybody, any other board member have any questions for Mr. Crape? All right, thank you, sir, very much. You can stay. Okay, board members, any questions for Ms. Johnston?
Obviously, I do. Does your budget, I understand that you did your budget way back before Christmas, or right after Christmas, so that's why I didn't know with the iReady whether there will be a change coming or we don't, so obviously you don't know that yet, you're in the process of still talking about it.
Correct, yeah.
Does this budget that you have that I looked at under JSE include your new students that will be coming in?
Yes.
Okay,
And the
so,
reason I think you don't see a big increase is because we did decrease, the everyday math consumables were probably the largest line item in the
Right,
budget. And when
right.
we decreased that, it kind of gave us a little more leeway to increase some other things because of the increase in students and staff.
so, being that we are, at some point this year, we are picking the ELA program. Hopefully, we'll get some material before we have to vote on it. But, like the consumables will there be consumables in the ELA material?
Yes, but that.
This year it's covered with the money that you have in buying the whole set. I understand that.
Yeah, so historically with our Journeys program that we have right now for ELA, the consumables did not come out of our building budget, and that's going to be the same way with our new ELA program. So
We have to look, when it comes to consumables for Journeys was, the consumables was a part of the original purchase when we bought it back in 18, 17. So every year, the consumables were renewed
it was a one-time purchase.
with the one-time purchase. So the new series, when it's purchased, whatever it is, Dr. Ulmer and I have discussed, there's a funds sitting right now in the fund balance, that'd be a good use for that, for this, or doing some other, putting it in district-wide, so we don't show a huge increase to the building budgets in one year, and a big decrease in the following year.
So there will be consumables gone in their budget next year, or there won't be?
I don't even.
You don't know,
I don't know what I'd have to look
What
at
the
the
program,
contract
okay.
and figure out where.
I was just asking for because I know like everyday math was, you buying those workbooks, that's basically the book, because you had a reference book with it. I just didn't know with what you're looking at now, whether that goes. The other thing, in your general supplies, under the allocated supplies and paper, you left it the same. And I have a concern that with the number of new students you're having, that's not the same. When I looked in at the middle school, they upped it a decent amount for that very reason. So that's why I asked the question, Adrian, and like I said, I know you did these budgets back when, but I don't want you to.
So just to speak to the allocated supplies cost, I do that calculation for them in their budgets, and I do that once I get all the bid results from KPN for the essential supplies.
So this could change.
Yes, it probably will change. Some of them might go up and some of them may go down, and they might stay the same. So I will handle all that here in the next 2 months once we get the bid results back.
Okay, and the last part out of your budget, the travel for the conference funds. I see you doubled it And I'm not knocking conferences, I went myself, I think they're good, I think sometimes more people need to go, because they get out of their little box and they see what else is happening around the world, so to speak. Is there a special conference that you know people were going to, that you raised it that much, or it was just a figure that you put in there?
A couple of things that Ben and I discussed. One was the increased number of staff, not that it's doubled, but
Right.
just some increased staff coming from Saladaysburg. And then we looked at the other buildings, and in comparison with the other buildings, our budget for conferences was low. So we decided to increase it a little bit because of that. And it's typically more of like one day things that people, it's not usually people going to like a 3-day conference or something. It's usually been more of an accumulation of little things, like something that they might go to locally, or webinars, things like that that they might have to pay for. So that was our thinking behind the increase.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause not that I'm saying that is better, because I think Mr. Jeans is way too low, but that's me. Nothing. That's all I have for Jersey Shore Elementary.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have one, but I was going to ask if any other board member before I ask. No? So I have one, but it's complicated. I wanted to try not to present it that way. I know that you were looking into a new ELA program. And I realized that once you figure out what exactly that all entails, I'm assuming you would come and give a presentation to the board of what that is. But would that actually be something, because like I saw that you increased it just a few $100s. So like, is that something that you foresee happening for this upcoming school year to be in place by?
It is something that we are planning for the 25-26 school year, but like we mentioned a little bit ago, our ELA series has not been, at least for the last 8 years since we've been with Journeys, it's not been included in a building budget. That was like the one-time fee that we were talking about, and that was paid on a district level for all the elementary buildings, so we didn't include that. That's what was so different about the math consumables. We've always included that in our building budget for whatever reason, and we're anticipating that the ELA series would be a district purchase, and so it wouldn't really be reflected in the individual building budgets.
That makes
You can
sense.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr.
No,
Anderson.
you're right on. I mean, first year, it'll probably be
Because you already have that money set aside, because there was nothing
Yes.
in the budget anywhere.
correct. So the first year, my belief will be, they're gonna come to me and go, we need X. And X will be, I'll go and they say, make sure X is everything. They'll say, yep, it's everything, okay. And then the next question is gonna be, what does it look like going forward? And that's where different companies will create different contracts, and she was explaining, the company that we used last time, everything for the next 8 years was included in that one purchase.
Everyday math was a little different because it was an annual cost, and every year we would look at how many students do we have, how many workbooks do we need. Certain teachers were using more digital resources, maybe they didn't need to order a paper consumable workbook, and so it kind of fluctuated a little bit that way.
Okay, makes total sense. Thank you. Any other questions?
Can I interrupt the presentations just for a second?
Absolutely.
There is a vehicle in the parking lot, a little neon, that is running. So if any of you have that vehicle, you may want to go out and check.
It's a neon, I believe. I think it just ran out of gas. I don't see the lights anymore.
Maybe it left. Okay, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. All right. Thank you, Ms. Johnston.
Thank
Greatly
you.
appreciate it. All right. Dr. Battaglia, thank you for being patient and waiting. Okay, board members, any questions?
I just have two short ones, two small ones.
Okay.
First year, go easy.
On the summary sheet,
Yeah.
you have project supplies, and it's not a lot of money, but you say it's a new course at the middle school. What's the new course?
Foreign language for the last 2
Oh,
years.
is that, you've been doing that, so
Yeah,
it's
for the
some
last 2
supplies,
years, we've
okay.
had Spanish, and Miss Bressler asked for a little bit of money so she could do some projects. So I just added it as an official course in the budget.
And the only other one that I have is under the textbooks with English. You're doing about the same amount both years? Are these textbooks for different grade levels? What's happening there? You have like 15,136 for last year, or this year, and last year you had 189. But so is each year you having a different grade level buying text? What's going on there?
All 3 grade levels get a new set of textbooks every year. They added some classroom library replacement books. There's some smaller itemized items.
So you have an actual curriculum, and these are different than that?
In addition to,
Okay.
yeah. So the ELA department uses Springboard as their curriculum, their textbooks. And then they have some magazine subscriptions, some classroom library books that they've just kind of added to supplement to replace some new ones.
So are they eventually, they're just building up within their classroom, or some of that, okay. That's all I have.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Osenbach. Okay. Next, we will have courtesy of the floor. I know a few people did walk in late. I don't have anybody signed up, but I will give you an opportunity if there was someone that wanted to speak.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening, Mr.
Bob
Pryor.
Pryor.
Which
Thank you.
agenda item would you like to speak on tonight?
Is this for the agenda?
Yep, this
Oh, I'm
would.
sorry.
Oh, that's
I
okay.
guess I'm a little anxious.
No worries. That's all right.
Really nothing specifically. I can wait until the.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope, that's fine, no problem. All right, we will move on to personnel.
I'll make a motion to approve.
You absolutely can. We removed the letter D, so I need a motion, please, A through C and E through
Q.
Q. Thank you.
So moved.
Harry, thank you.
Second.
Sherry, any questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Under curriculum and instruction, motion to approve A, B, and C. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second?
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. There is nothing under buildings and grounds. Moving on to letter H under finance. May I have a motion through A through D and F through K with an E?
It's all of them, but
All
just a
them,
roll
and then
call,
roll
Z.
call? Okay. A motion A through K, please.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Oh, now you want me to do the step voice?
vote A through D,
Okay.
and then F
Okay, okay, okay.
And then we'll do a roll call for.
E, okay.
Open for question?
Open
I
for
thought we
question.
already.
No, we said, we identified that would be a roll call before,
I'm sorry.
No problem.
To amend it.
to put the amount in there.
Correct. Okay. Correct.
So what are we
Okay, so
doing first?
We're doing A through D and F through K.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Next, we are doing a roll call on letter E. Mr. Enders, whenever you're ready, please.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Brungard,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Furman,
Yes.
Thomas,
No.
Stemler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to miscellaneous, items A and B. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. There is nothing under old business, so now we will have courtesy of the floor.
Mom.
Mr. Pryor, if you would like to come.
I don't want to rush up here like we did last time.
That's okay, we'll forgive you.
Bob Pryor, Mifflin Township. I have some concerns about the direction this board is going. Here we are, again, spending money on another building that may be closed and probably should be. Remember Saladaceburg, the $500,000 roof replacement that didn't even leak? Those are bad decisions. And will we ever recover that $500,000 if we sell that building? Who knows? Around 20 years ago, the then board of directors was considering closure of Avis Elementary. So what changed? What changed? Maybe somebody should go back and look at those minutes. But I'll tell you what I think changed. Higher cost and less efficiency. I feel that this board should continue to explore ways to eliminate reoccurring expenses. And we will be doing that on Saladaceburg as we have been Nipponos. Money you don't have to spend to heat the school and to pay water bills and all that. We won't have to do that anymore once that building is sold. So we'll be saving that money, and that money could go towards working on the middle school and the high school, and we should have to take out a much lower loan. I remember when I was on the board, when we were looking at revamping Jersey Shore Elementary, we got all sorts of static on spending millions of dollars. And I'm sure people are happy with that school. We got to stop spending money on Avis and concentrate on things like class reconfiguration. Has anybody spoke to other districts that have already done that? Again, Jersey Shore is behind the ball on this. Other districts have been doing it for years. I'm not aware of any problems that they're having. So why doesn't somebody talk to those schools and get the benefit of their experience? Another thing you can do to save money is cut back on the required credits to graduate. 27. When I talk to other people on boards across Lake Cumming County, they can't believe we have 27. Now, a couple of those are good, okay. But I think we could cut it back to maybe 24 or 22. And also, this board has to stick to the basics in our education of our kids. If you cut a credit or two, maybe you could educate the kids on the history of our country, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. You'd be surprised how many students I talk to that can't even tell us what happened December 7th, 1941, or who our first president was. It's unbelievable. So that's
you,
all
Mr.
I'm
Pryor.
asking you to consider the path we're taking. Just remember Saladaysburg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regularly Pyatt Township. I want to thank Mr. Pryor for bringing up reconfiguration, because that's a good lead into what I'd like to talk about, actually to revisit something that I spoke to at the last meeting. Just a little refresher. Beginning in January of 2024, through the November vote, the board discussed closing Salisbury Elementary School. Throughout that time, we kept hearing over and over again, hunt study, hunt study, hunt study, as justification for closing that school, and the extensive project list that was required to be completed to bring our buildings up to, and if you remember, up to like-new condition. That was what Hunt was requested to create. That was brought out at the public hearing. Not just necessary renovations, but to make the buildings like new. So we hear Hunt study, but what we didn't hear was Hunt studies, plural. Because there are two Hunt studies. There's the one that was always referenced, that has the huge project list. And then there is the second Hunt study that I just became aware of 2.5 weeks ago, that actually included the architect's 5 options for reconfiguration of our buildings. And it also included Hunt's recommended option. Now, in the whole time that we're discussing closure, nothing came from the board president or the superintendent at the board meetings about this second Hunt study. Nothing came from the board president and the superintendent at the public hearing about that second Hunt study. And as a result, we never heard about the 5 options for reconfiguration. We have 4 new board members. I don't know if they heard about the 5 options for reconfiguration. And my question is, why not? Was it because Hunt's recommendation for closure didn't match that preferred option that the board president and the superintendent presented? We both know they wanted to close Sal. The board president voted to close Salisbury at a previous vote, and before that vote, the superintendent also said he wanted to close Salisbury. Is that why the study that told the district that the architect's preferred option was to close Avis wasn't shared with the public? And certainly not shared publicly with the 4 new board members. Why was it kept hidden? Is this why we never saw anyone from Hunt Architects presenting throughout that whole year 2024? Like we saw throughout the Nipponos closure projects for 2 years, the architects came to as many meetings as the board wanted, took questions from the board members and from the public. Is it because this study didn't say what the board president and the superintendent wanted us to hear? So how could anybody make an informed vote, particularly those 4
Thank you,
board
Mrs.
members?
Spearley.
So once again,
Your
I
time
call
is
on
up.
the
Please take your
board
seat.
to rescind this vote to close, to investigate the Hunt options, and then vote again.
Anybody else? All right, that concludes our meeting. We're adjourned for this evening.